You guys know what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
Well, listen up! There is a storm coming like nothing you have ever seen, and not a one of you is prepared for it.
How to be a Successful Tyrant. It's my first book. I finished writing it in 2005, and it came out in 2006, so I finished writing it 15 years ago. It's currently out of print. I'm working on getting the second edition back into print. Thought I'd give a dramatic reading of one little part of it. This is Chapter 2, Exploiting Fear. From the beginning, subheading, Fear as a Tool. Now, keep in mind, this is written as a manual for someone trying to be a tyrant. So when it says you, it's talking to somebody trying to be a tyrant. Almost all oppression via propaganda is based upon scaring people and then presenting a false choice where the people can choose either to do what you want them to do or face some unknown, often purely fictional horror. This is not the method of the common thug, which can be summarized as, do this or I will hurt you. A successful modern tyrant never presents himself as the thing to be afraid of, as doing so would obviously create resentment and hatred in the peasantry, and that leads to resistance. Every thing to be feared, or TTBF, with which you terrorize your peasants must be presented as some separate outside evil that only you can save them from. You must present the simple choice between obedience to you and the threat of some unpleasant happening, which does not appear to be of your doing and which you pretend to lament the existence of. In short, you must deceive and scare the citizens into voluntarily giving up their freedom. Quote, the people never give up their liberties but under some delusion. End quote, Edmund Burke. A simple example would be making up a plague of some sort, assuring people that millions are doomed to die, and then claiming that giving you a lot of money and control is the only hope of averting disaster. Or perhaps, instead of making up a disease, you can pick a real disease, grossly exaggerate the risk it poses to the peasants, whip them into a frenzy, and then present yourself as their only hope for salvation, which, of course, will require you to be given much wealth and power. Recent history gives many examples to build upon, such as AIDS, anthrax, mad cow disease, etc. Even the common flu can be used to spread alarm and panic in the peasantry.
The scale of harm that can be done by an inept official or even an inept private citizen in their own messy life is nothing compared to the evils of a highly competent official working under undue authority. It's the recipe for everything we hold ill, especially if you're not their chosen group. We must guard the circles of power and spheres of influence in our own life, taking them on voluntarily and in goodness and with forethought, if at all. And we must guard against any one ring or any several small rings of concentrated power. In that sense, it's Lord of the Rings and Gollum and Sauron. In that sense, one world is no world at all if it's controlled by one ring of concentrated power under a system of man or technology created by man. No. Say no, and let's keep thinking. Shakespeare wrote in Henry V, turn him to any cause of policy, the Gordian knot of it he will unloose, familiar as his garter. Well, I guess we need that from someone who's coming from the right place on the benefit of ordinary people who just want a basically decent system and then hopefully better, and not the crap that we're living under. All right, we need someone who can envision and see this Gordian knot solution so that we can all see it. It's also the problem of a minnow trap. And from the point of view of a minnow, it's an inward funnel of seeming opportunity from which there's then little hope for escape. If a catalyst or a frightening incident can occur in front of that minnow trap, then it can provide the energy needed for the reaction of trapping the minnow. That is to say, the stimulus of surprise, a scare, then creates an incentive for that fish to not only move, but to change its motion into evasive action. And once evasive action is initiated, it's just a matter of being steered into the trap and going down the tunnel of no return. Once the minnows are provoked, once the inciting incident occurs, once there's a big thing they talk about on the media that no one can ignore and everyone must obey, once there's a situation too big for anyone to handle or contain, once those minnows are provoked, they're easily enough steered into the trap, gradually at first down the tunnel, then past the threshold, which evades their processes of logic and thinking until it's too late. And lest we should degrade the mind of the simple minnow, it's worth pointing out that the bulk of humanity, i.e. the most decent part of us on the whole, are easily duped into the same exact type of trap. This is in essence the problem we must solve. How can we avoid the point of no return in this general trap that we're caught in? It's the trap of problem-reaction-solution, the Hegelian dialectic. An alarming stimulus pops up. Most of the people react. At the same time, the specter of too much control pops up on the other hand and causes the other group of people to react. But the problem is that we're facing a scientific management system which has thought many moves ahead, and the problem and its reaction have both been anticipated. And the reaction, even when it's done for the right reasons and in response to good issues, tends toward the solution concocted by the controllers of this scientific experiment. It's not the fact that science can study conditioning and know that it's a true factor. It's the fact that the conditioning is used by the scientific management class to control and trick and befuddle and confuse and steer us into their traps. It's the problem of being still too naive to recognize the problem-reaction solution. How do we recognize the true problems for what they are and not get caught in going further and further down the narrowing tunnel? Please, I really hope someone could see their way out of this.
We've all been waiting for it to happen. Just didn't know how it was going to rear its ugly head.
What?
The New World Order.
Population reduction.
Is that what you and Lily were filming?
Yeah. We were filming in case anything happened to us.
Tell me.
There's no going back from this. this, Dion. Everything will change for you once you know.
Tell me.
I believe we are enslaved in a society where we will not be free to think or feel or do anything other than consume. Slaves for work, to buy things beyond our means, living in fear of terrorism. I believe this is to blindside us, trick us into a situation where they, the powers that be, will wipe us out. Kill most of us. Kill all of us here. They are going to reduce the population. That is what I believe.
It's sad to think that there may need to be a population limit on the earth. Maybe there does. We can't keep on doing what we're doing.
There will be a global population reduction until there are only 500 million people left. Although I believe that this planet can support 2 billion humans perfectly comfortably.
How do you know that?
It's a question of space and the resources that space has, and using those resources to survive and not exploiting them.
Almost 7 billion humans use too many resources, and this leads to a very uncertain future for us all.
Right, climate change.
Climate change occurs naturally. That's why we have the Ice Age.
So now you're telling me that climate change is fake?
As you know it.
Why do you recycle? Why do you recycle?
I'm doing my bit.
So you're trying to save the planet?
Yeah.
How precious of you to think that you could save the planet. If she needed saving, especially from us, she'd just wipe us out. Hypothetically, if we want to conserve 80% of the planet's resources, then we should get rid of or cull that 20% of the population who are consuming them, yeah?
Hypothetically, I guess that would be a solution.
Yeah, the final solution.
We use so much of the planet's resources that there's just no balance. Soon we would have depleted the resources so much that life can't be sustained. And then everything would die.
How would they reduce the population? We're not stupid.
Hitler said, the bigger the lie, the more the people will believe it.
I think it would be done hit the start. The armed forces are going to kill us. They'll follow orders. It's what they've been trained to do. They're being taught to be racists. The army are already killing people in other countries. People in power are using fear to fuel the racism. How long before they use this racism to make soldiers turn on their own? Innocent people living in a police state.
It's already begun. Controlling and monitoring the movement of individuals within the society. Putting chips in passports, ID cards, CCTV.
They're using this orchestrated ruse to convince the public to accept Big Brother-type controls. And then they will intentionally reduce the mass of the world's population. Mass genocide on a scale never seen before. There are a mass of ways they could introduce population slaughter. More staged events, orchestrated and maneuvered conflicts, and the use of bioengineered diseases. Vaccines. They could come in vaccines. Women are being encouraged to get sterilized. What if they're using cervical cancer jabs? Not this generation, but the next. Prevention and cure for cancer. Or having babies.
That's madness.
You're right. They'd never wait 2 generations.
In the event that I'm reincarnated, I'd like to come back as a deadly virus. So to contribute to solving overpopulation. Prince Philip said that. Bioengineered pathogens are being created to eliminate ethnic groups, such as blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, homosexuals.
Homosexuals? Surely that would keep the population down.
Yes, but it's not nature's way. Love is not a factor when you're dealing with how the few procreate.
Natural selection, where the only natural element is the powers that be.
Population control already happens in China. You have to have a license before you can have a second child.
Come on, Dion. How many times have you thought about how unfair it is that you have to work to have a good life, whereas others breed and get given benefits and homes? How often have you wondered, like many others, what real value they bring to the world?
Population reduction programs eliminate a mind-blowing 95% of the population.
Eugenics is the pseudoscience of culling the excess population.
Fake science.
Got that.
Who's your clever girl?
It'll be done in a barbaric fashion using draconian methods, and this global holocaust will probably come out from under the flag of the UN.
I can almost imagine us being frog-marched away from our homes in a martial law kind of way, and no one bats an eyelid.
Almost 95% of the population.
13 out of every 14 people killed, destroyed, and murdered.
In order to stabilize world population, they need or want to dispose of 6.5 billion people.
Viewers, you don't know who the cameraman is. You don't know why you're being made to see these things. Nor do I. You're seeing me. I can't even see you. I may be dead by the time you watch this. Very possibly are. You don't know who's the man who's making things he wants you to see. Destroy your television sets. Now. You must listen to no orders. That's all I can tell you at this point in humanity. Believe me.
The shelter line stretching around.